Thanks for joining us for another episode of Already Won, a Sports Friends podcast. Each week, Coach Ben and Coach Kyle share their insights, interview special guests, present teachable moments, and offer some extra words of wisdom. The victory is ours, because we've already won.
Welcome to Already Won, a Sports Friends podcast. I'm your host, as always, Ben Wildman, and welcome to Already Won, and I'm here with Kyle Apps. Kyle, how you doing?
Good. Trying to keep warm. Things are warming up. Things are heating up. Getting to spring and then summer, I'm loving it.
If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. And you, Mad Dog, you can handle that heat. But remember, guys, God has given us the victory, so whatever you do, don't quit. This podcast, as always, is if you're a Christian, follow with Christ. We're going to share how you can use sports as a great tool in this victory, whether you're a player, a coach, or a fan. And each week, we're going to bring you relevant topics, great guests, and teachable moments. Teachable moments are a core, fundamental part of our Sports Friends training. So thank you for joining us. And Carl, what do we tell our friends?
We already won. I want to also say Wildman's weekly words, too, just with that tune drops.
People got to hang around. They've got to listen to the whole episode to get that at the end. Yeah. Sometimes we mess it up. I say wisdom and words. It's like some people think it's wisdom. Some people think it's words.
All your words are wisdom.
I don't know about that. But Carl, well, speaking of words of wisdom, then have you got any words of wisdom? We love watching sport, right? And we love watching NBA, right? Basketball. Also weekends, being and gone, we enjoyed that. Carl, you normally watch more of the NBA after All-Star Weekend, right? So is that right? Why is that?
Typically, every sport, whether it's American baseball, basketball, everything, it's after the All-Star break. Football is at the end of the year. But anyways, it's just because that's when you see the teams rise. Are they going to show up? Are they going to put up and get the balance that they need? And are they going to perform? Because before that, it's just getting to know each other. And after, here we go. Game on.
There we go. Game on. So you obviously play like more than 80 games. So people in England can't understand in the regular season how you can have so many games. I think maybe that's part of the reason. But I follow it a little bit all year round. And, I think it's pretty wide open this year. Who do you fancy this season, Mad Dog?
Have I already said it once? If not every time, it's the Bucks. The Bucks are going all the way again.
We'll see. Home. We'll see. I mean, I heard something interesting. Every time the KC Chiefs get to win the Super Bowl in American football, the Miami Heat always make it to the NBA Finals. That's a stat. 2020, last year, are they going to make it? That's outrageous. No way it's not going to happen this year.
Okay.
Twice.
Right.
Okay, in recent years. It ain't going to happen this year.
No,
it's not going to be Miami Heat. But no, I think it's wide open, honestly. But Bucks, we'll see how good they come. They've been really consistent, could do better, but let's see who rises to the top. I like that analogy. Love that, Mad Dog. Love that. Now, putting a petition together for Money Pot. I think we should explain this to our listeners. We've mentioned it a few times. Cal, from your understanding, what is Money Pot? And then I'll explain it.
Money Pot is, it's a bad joke, maybe. Okay, for American listeners, the closest analogy I can get to is maybe horse, where you throw up a shot, and if you make it, the person behind you has to make it. The next person has to make it. They miss it, they get a letter. For you, I have no. What do you think? Can you explain it? Because I'm never going to repeat it after this. It's never coming up again.
Here we go. I'm putting a timer on it. I'm doing less than a minute because I don't want to ramble on.
You're saying a minute?
A minute to win it. Here we go. So Money Pot, time is on. Money Pot, everyone. Let's say there's 5 people playing. Everyone picks a different spot on the court. Okay, everyone has 10 in the pot. They start with 10. First person shoots. If they score, there's 1 in the pot. Next person shoots. If they score, there's 2 in the pot. Next person shoots, they miss. Because there's 2 in the pot, they lose 2. So they're down to 8. Next person shoots. 1 in the pot, scores. Next person misses, they lose a life, go down to 9. You keep going until you get to 0. If you're 0, then you're the rebounder and you pass it back. You keep going until there's nothing in the pot. You get to see who's clutch, and that, my friends, is Money Pot. That was 40 seconds.
All right. Okay. Well, next week we're going to interview Marcus Landry, and I'm going out to the farm, I hope, and we're not going to bring that up. I'm not even going to bring it up.
No, don't bring it up. Look, it's maybe intrigued like one listener, but that's Money Pot. If you're ever in England, we play that game quite a lot. That's Money Pot. So, yeah. Anyway, we already won. It doesn't matter if you don't like Money Pot, because Carl, we already won. Who's our guest this week? Who we got?
Well, last week we had Trip Johnson, co-founder of Sports Friends. This week we have the other co-founder, Brian Davidson. He'll share some good stories. You know, he's the co-founder of Sports Friends, co-founder of Charlotte Eagles, co-founder of Missionary Athletes International, co-founder of his family, because Chris is the other co-founder. You get it? You get it?
Hey,
Anyways.
like that. Incredible that he's co-founded all these things and his family, most importantly.
Yeah, most people can't even find their socks, but it's good.
I'm one of them. I mean, can't wait to hear about, incredible co-founding of all these things. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest this week, Brian Davidson.
Hey, and welcome, Brian Davidson, to the stage, as it were.
I'm a mess already. I'm going to make mistakes. But I've already won.
There you go.
Good to be here, Kyle and Ben.
Yeah. So what? Yeah, I know you're not tired and you're not retired. So what are you doing these days?
Well, these days I'm with an organization called Navigators.
Heard of that?
Navigators. You heard of that, right, Kyle? Kyle, you were involved with that before.
Yeah, that's right.
See. Great intentional discipleship ministry, with great roots. And I've always admired them from a distance. And now I'm trying to help them. They've always avoided sports ministry from the sense, not necessarily intentionally, but they're very strong in the military and on campuses and in a lot of neighborhoods. And so we're kind of introducing a little bit of the sports ministry track to them, particularly as it connects with parents. So trying to get parents not to outsource their discipleship any longer to the Christian school or youth group or church, etc., but for fathers and mothers to own that and to use the context of the environment of competitive sports to train in godliness and to be on mission on their teams in the community.
Awesome. Well, Brad, looking forward to diving in with loads of different questions around the different organizations that you've co-founded. But tell us a bit about yourself, your personal family. Tell us a little bit about that. And I know they play the wrong football, so tell us a little bit about that.
100% they did. The Devils football. But, it's been very, very, very interesting. I have been married for 42 years. Christine, we met at college, Houghton College. Shout out to Houghton College. Where I was the soccer player, she was the photographer, and I noticed a few more photos of me than the rest of the guys, so that was good. So I married that girl before she could have a chance to rethink things, and we've had 7 children. We've been in ministry for 40 years. We actually had 4 biological children, and we were done at the age of 51. Oh, by the way, we have 9 grandchildren. And we were done at 51, and we're already grandparents. And we got a phone call about adopting 3 boys. And so the 1-minute story with them is they lost their dad. They're from northern Ghana. And it has actually a Sports Friends connection to it, believe it or not. They lost their dad. Flood came in. They went through an actual famine after that. And the mom had 6 kids. Uncle took them in, couldn't feed them all. The uncles got together, put them on 3 of them on a bus to an orphanage in Accra, 16 hours. They were 1.5, 4, and 7.5. In an orphanage for a year, adopted by an American family for 2.5 years who liked American football. And then that family imploded and couldn't take care of them. And we got the call on a Friday. On Saturday, I had 101 reasons why it was a bad idea. And by Sunday, I knew the Spirit wanted me to adopt them. And the next Friday, they were in our house. So it was a 1-week deal, happened quickly. But the interesting Sports Friends connection was I was there 4.5 years before. And I was with Pastor Steve and Kyle. I was with John. And I was with Dan. It was the 4 of us. And we were going by this one road. And there was mosque after mosque after mosque. And it was like the Holy Spirit literally leaped from me. And it was like, where are the churches? Who's going to bring the gospel here? So if you can imagine, fast forward 4.5 years, the boys are in our house. We're going through their paperwork 2-3 weeks later, and we find out they're from that area. And so again, total God, because in my flesh, I would have said, this is crazy to be adopting 3 more kids. I want to fish more. I want to golf more. I need a little more me time. I've been in ministry for a while. Like, give somebody else a break. Call Kyle. I don't know. Call somebody, call Ben. Look at Ben's younger. But, the Lord brought him into our life. And basically at that point, the other connection was I probably would have stayed with sports friends and gone to Brazil to potentially open up that strategic training and resource center there, but didn't feel we could do that any longer. And it was really called to really disciple 3 people rather than pioneer any more projects. Even though the one in Brazil seemed like this would be amazing to put Brazilians into unreached people group areas there. SIM was being asked to come into that area with the churches to help with their mission program. But it was about these 3. And another funny little anecdote. One of them said to us not long after we had them, so Dad, I'd like to play American football.
Torture for you, Brian.
No, seriously, I was like, oh, yes, we're a soccer family. And no, nobody plays American football in Ghana. You're from Ghana. So let's just stay to the roots here and to the soccer thing and all. And again, the Holy Spirit. So in my flesh, stupidest thing I could have ever heard of. It's Holy Spirit convicting me like, no, let him play what he wants to do. I take him to a football practice. He's 2 weeks late. The guy tells me to go put the shoulder pads on in the closet. I come out, they're on backwards. And the guy just rolls his eyes. And then he goes out to the session, hits a guy, and the guy goes over. And the coach goes, we're good. And so interesting, if you watch the Super Bowl, this year. Ben, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did. Yep, I watched it.
They did a 2-minute commercial, the longest commercial. And it was all about.
He doesn't get American commercials. I watched the Super Bowl in the UK last year. It's terrible, Brian.
I need to know.
I did see this commercial, and I was like, I was going to
now
call you up.
Sense, Ben. Why is Ben even on here?
That's the question everyone's asking. That is the question everyone's asking.
So it was a 2-minute commercial about Ghana. And the interesting thing is, the NFL and Nike, my son was actually in Vegas at the time, being sponsored by Nike and NFL. And they are launching initiatives into Ghana. And the Deputy Ministry of Youth has already commissioned that American football will be introduced to every single school in the country, including every Muslim institute there. So again, nobody can make this stuff up, right? God's hand in all of that. So we are fervently praying now that God would use us and the boys through the platform of American football to take the gospel into those schools so that we can make disciples who make disciples. So hold on. I know nothing about really American football, but it's going to be our entry point. So it's pretty amazing how God works that way. And truth, it's not false to me. I wouldn't have done it. It's totally orchestrated by the Holy Spirit. The vision, the bringing the boys out of a Muslim community into our home where they've come to know Christ through that time. And it's just, and now it's American football going in at this point, at this time, right when my son is being, was brought in by Nike already and the NFL to be a part of initiative. So it's just real exciting to be a part of it. Try not to mess it up.
So we've known each other for, I'd say, almost 20 years, for better or worse. I think, learning from you, like I told Trip last week, it was, when you guys told me about Sports Friends, it was your passion that said, this is loving God, loving the youth, and then maybe a little bit of sports in there. So those three molded together was amazing. That's all I needed, because I grew up loving sports, a little bit of God. I know your mantra is love God, like sports, but so your history of sports ministry, like how, I mean, did it start in university at Houghton, or did it start earlier than that, or how did you get kind of the passion to bring sports and evangelism, discipleship together?
Yeah, that's great, pal. I'm going to try to keep this. It's always so much, and so I'm trying to like knock that down. Like, so this is me. I'm the guy sitting down.
I got it right here, man.
Yeah, so I'm not very like, I was not the most planned baby in the whole wide world.
There he is, the brain right there.
I mean, I literally, I was a mistake in human things. But Isaiah tells us God knew us before we're even in our mother's womb. And really, my mom came to know Christ 2 years before I was born. Her biggest regret was she did not raise her children to know Christ personally. As you can see, they were all basically out of the house by the time I was growing up. And she died when I was 6 of cancer. And really, truly the only memory I have of her, she's prayed over me every single day. And I really believe those prayers is what really like were honored by God and brought me onto himself. My brothers were all phenomenal athletes. And so in a day in which you weren't just handed a trophy for participation, you actually had to earn it. It was, you know, trophies by works, not by grace back then. So they were incredible athletes, and my dad loved sports. And so the two were always a part of our life. I got separated from my dad, lived with a pastor for a while, went to church, didn't really make a difference in my life. And then at around 17, I was a sports junkie who ended up falling in love with God. And when I fell in love with God, I wasn't, as an athlete, I didn't have what my sons have, especially Gideon. You know, he's got a 38-inch vertical. He bench presses 325. You know, he runs a 40 and 4.42. Like, I had none of that, but I was all in. Very passionate, very intense, you know, had a good sports IQ because I was always playing or watching or dreaming about sports and played all different seasons. And so now, like, these things were coming together, and really that's what was like, whoa, what do I do? And I thought at first, which many people think, you have to give up sports. And really the clear message that God gave me was, no, I have to surrender my passions and talents at the foot of the cross. And if I would do that, if I would die to myself and die to sports and die to making a name through sports, then God would use me to take the message of the cross locally and to the ends of the earth. And he alone would get the glory. And so that's a completely different thing from sports. And so, like, I went on a little journey of like, well, what's this mean? So when I went to Houghton, first time I ever gave my personal testimony was in front of 20,000 people, because we got a couple of our teammates got selected to play in India, 1979. And so the first time ever on a sports ministry trip, and I was like, wow, playing soccer to tell people about Jesus. And we passed up Bibles. It was like just the light bulb went on, you know, of like, wow. This is far more fulfilling and satisfying than trying to, you know, hold some trophy up in the air or kiss a ring. It had no significance. And so it's like, wow. And then my dad, who had become my best friend, I literally watched him die alone. I was with him. And I was singing How Great Thou Art and Amazing Grace, his 2 songs, favorite songs, holding his hand. And I never saw him cry. He was Scottish, you know, and tear comes down his eyes. And I guess, Kyle, when I get to heaven, I'll find out, was it my singing that bad, or was it the moment? I think it was the moment. And then, you know, we were holding hands, and then it was like that last breath was gone. And it was really Timothy, you know, where in 6:7, where it says, 1 Timothy 6:7, for we bring nothing into this world, and it is certain we'll leave with nothing. And that was where, like, as silly as it sounds, my trophies don't go with me. My teammates don't go with me. It's all about that relationship with Jesus Christ at that point. At the end of my junior year, I got married to Chris, and I learned that I was very, very selfish. And then my senior year, we had 6 friends killed in a car accident. So I went through a real refiner's fire with everything, and I realized that tomorrow wasn't promised to me, and I needed to live today for Jesus Christ with everything I had. And Lord, how would you use the platform of sport for me to advance the kingdom? And so really it was, I think, because I teach and share a lot of these things, people might think, oh, he's a holy roller, he's had it. I was just the opposite. I was like Paul, like Paul, who killed Christians, right? Like, I was awful as a Christian, between the lines, on the sidelines, and in the stands. I mean, everywhere. Like, I struggled with bringing that together. And it really got to a place where, how come I could get so excited about going to, well, we'll put it in Ben's terms, Wembley Stadium, and even get there early and well planned out, but church I was late for, things like that. Like, and how do I really, like, love your neighbor? Like, the referee who, okay, let me see the right word. The referee who stinks, he's my neighbor. Like, he really is. The coach is not, whatever, playing my kid or whatever. He's your neighbor. And so it really became like, these are precepts that have to become biblical principles for my context, and I need to practice them and live them out so that I respond in love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, and not from the pride standpoint. And I have a lot of stories of just really God and still continuing to work with me in those areas of bring those together. And from Boston, the home of Dunkin' Donuts.
America, this is a commercial break. America runs on Dunkin'. Brian runs on Dunkin'. We're gonna get sponsored some way, one way or the other, Brian. We're looking for it. So,
and I always said, if you go into Dunkin' Donuts, it doesn't make you a donut if you go in there every day. But I don't know. I'm starting to kind of like, no, but it's like going to a church. You don't become a Christian just going to church. And so I think that's kind of where the Lord kind of began to start a vision.
Brian, I just hearing you speak, I know our listeners are going to be gleaming from this gold, and a lot of the stuff you've said, it's become our foundational building blocks of training, which we've then trained, over 12,000 coaches in our sports friends countries. And that is now that light bulb moment that you spoke about has happened to myself and Kyle, and we know all different coaches now we train who've also had that light bulb moment around bringing sports and ministry together. I love it. I would love to ask about, let's ask about sports friends first, because we heard from Trip, and then we'll go to MAI. Trip shared a little bit about the beginnings of sports friends. Tell us from your point of view, at your side. I know you've got loads of stories, but try and pick ones which you think you can choose them around the birthing of sports friends.
Yeah, I think, and Ben, just to finish up on that other one, I think like we love our sports, but they can become that idol, right? They can be the modern day golden calf of today. And so our family motto is and became love God like sports, just simply because it had to remind us of the dangers of the idolatry. If I die, or what's your favorite team, Ben? Tell me who's your favorite team.
Newcastle United football team.
Newcastle. Sorry, it's been some tough times lately, but there were good times at one point. But the thing about that is, if you die, like, nobody from Newcastle probably even knows about it. Nobody's coming to your funeral, and yet we put so much energy into their supporting them, right? And so I think, but if you think of God, he knew us before we were in our mother's womb. Like, he knows every hair on our head. It's easier to count these days, but he knows everything. He loves us so much. His son died for us on the cross, and I think that's the passion that just has to really be there for all that we're doing. And I think when it came, I was traveling. I've been in sports ministry for 40 years, but in the early days, we were traveling all over the place, 30, 40 countries, some of them 5, 10 different times. And in the early days of sports ministry, it was kind of like Billy Graham. What everybody was doing on the cross-cultural international trips was kind of blow in, blow up, blow out. And so nobody had the wrong intentions. I think everybody was just excited about getting people who had never come to the church, who would come to a soccer game, sharing a testimony, like I said in 79 for me, preaching, and then kind of like the raising the hand, writing it down, and doing cards. And so for many, many years of seeing this, I just kind of felt like, wow, like something's missing. And at the same time, the International Sports Coalition was going on, but there was still AIA and FCA, great ministries. There was just a lot of ministry going to elite athletes and a lot of big event sports ministry projects. And so I think what it wasn't my vision, it was the Spirit's vision from seeing this for so long, where in talking with my wife, Chris, we said, listen, we're using these churches, like not intentionally, but we're basically saying, hey, come out to the event. We'll get some hands raised. If people come to know the Lord, and you follow them up, and here's their cards, and bam, we were gone. And really what the Lord was doing at that time was saying, wait, how could we completely serve the church and the church planners? Forget about our name or whatever organization does that. Let the church come up with their name, but let's do the church planners, and let's make it all about serving them so that they could develop ongoing, sustainable, nationally led, church connected sports ministries that they could also do the discipleship. It doesn't matter what denomination, any of that. And I was on a trip, and a lot of people don't realize this, but Paul and Lila Beliski, they're from Canada, and SIM. They were the leaders at Ethiopia at that point. Now, Ben, you got to understand, SIM is old. They had no sports ministry. And so you kind of went like, but I had some relationships there with Fred Ely, who was there for the longest time. Their family was in Ethiopia and stuff at different times there. And it was kind of like, really, can we put new wine into old wineskins? And it was really like, and Paul and Lila Beliski, I almost get teary-eyed thinking about it. They were older. They were on their way out a few years. They so embraced the vision. And it was like, wow. And it was crazy. I'm going to give you an extra story. You might not want it. It was supposed to be started in Nigeria.
I was aware. I was part of that group that was talking to certain people.
Right. And I think both of those guys, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, have passed away.
Yeah.
The 2 leaders there. Yeah. But interesting, again, Ben, this is what, and I'm skipping a lot of things, but I think it's important to see how God divinely orchestrates things, is that when I was with the Charlotte Eagles and we had founded the soccer team, we were friends at SIM. We were talking. I had a couple of them on our board. I said, hey, you've planted churches all over the world. How can are you interested in using sport? Yeah, we are. Where should we go? And they gave me 5 places, but number one above all, they said like Nigeria. So I said, okay, I'm doing a training in Egypt. If you know anything about the kids' games, this was one of the first ever meetings in Egypt at that time before it was. And I was helping with their training and some of their things there. Then I said, I got to stop in Ethiopia and we'll go to Nigeria. And I stopped in Ethiopia. While I was there, I was with a guy named, who was I with at that point? Graham West, maybe. And long and short is my flights got canceled to Nigeria. And I thought, again, so prideful, I'll get on a flight. I mean, I know how to do this. Just get me to the airport. I'll talk him in, whatever. And of
Yeah,
course,
this is Brian, typical Brian. Things don't change.
yeah, I'm like, I can do this.
Fly the plane.
I'm going to get on this plane. And they couldn't. And when they said no for like, I don't know, the 11th time, I said, well, I finally got out of my pride and go like, whoa, Lord, do you want us to stay here? And that's when Ethiopia took off, because I was able to we just clearly got the vision from that standpoint, that's where we were supposed to be. And then I went back, we brought the Eagles over, Trip went on that trip, and that was exciting, and just a humble man. He had everything I didn't have. He was smart, Harvard graduate. I was just a Houghton graduate. He was in mergers and acquisitions, and just a lot of organizational skills, a lot with finances, and it was really just God bringing the two of us together with different gifting to really launch the ministry there. So God's hand again in providing the vision. I don't believe there's really any visions that are of God that really come from men. I think that they're spirit led, and the determination, if they are, they aren't, is that those from the spirit usually last. Leadership can change, things can change within it, but if it's from the spirit, it lasts. And I think that's kind of the sports friends.
Adding to that, like I've known you as those almost 20 years. I've seen your passion, and it's always been to some extent discipleship. Like, how do you feel sports friends, what you're doing now, how is that? How do you see the role of leaders and coaches in making an impact and being useful for discipleship instead of the sport ministry?
Yeah, I think I made a huge mistake, if I understand your question correctly, but I think the big mistake as I've looked back on this with sports friends is that we discussed discipleship. So when we started, when the Lord kind of gave the different layers, right, of training and all, I love that. I love teaching it. It just came out of who I was, and I love teaching. And it was kind of like, had to get the denominational leaders on board. So we only need like a vision for them, and they got to catch it. Because the way it works, they influence everybody else. We need a yes here, or no one else down here will do it. So we got to create a little vision sharing for them. And then they would give us men in their church to get it started. And then we would do an introduction to them to what we're looking for, right? And that's really where sport and ministry came in, as I had to be sure, again, it's just out of my life. I have to be sure that the passion for sport is, hey, sport, ministry, that my focus is real. Because if it's sport ministry, too much of the sport still stays with you. That was what a lot of our initial training was, because you could talk about it theologically all in the morning, have lunch, and go out and play a tournament, and you can see them like lose their minds. They're not loving their neighbor and all of those things. And you go, no, wait, that's sport, and you're getting pulled in by the magnetic force of winning or making a name for yourself, or your performance and the opinions of others, which is a lie from heaven that defines your self-worth and significance. So it can't be that, And then as we got guys out there and they got more into it, we could figure out who was really catching on and provide them even further training. And then the final was, if the denomination at this time, as it was going, the denominations were like, wow, there's kingdom fruit happening. We want somebody full time, in our denomination. Okay, great. Let's do that. And let's train them longer. And again, I give Paul and Lila a lot of a credit, because the reason why we ended up in 16 or 17 different denominations in Ethiopia is because of Paul and Lila being, it doesn't have to be the SIM churches. It can be for the going forth of the gospel everywhere. And so then we kind of tried to focus on different churches, different denominations working in their areas together. here's where I think a failed decision that I made was it was properly motivated. We did not want to take over their church's discipleship. And so when it came to like a next level of training in disciple making, we only did shallow topics. We didn't go deep enough on that, because I could tell you, we didn't want to take it away from the church's denomination, and knew that there were different doctrines and theological minor issues that we had to be concerned about, right? And so we thought, let the church disciple them themselves. In hindsight, it was probably a mistake, because you come to find out no one really does very few do discipleship really, really well, where you're actually discipling and you're really intentional, and you can actually develop like kids who come to know Christ, and then, you know, they have kids who come to know Christ, and you can actually follow that through. That spiritual generations is the key, right? So like 5 things, like, can they abide in Christ? We got that right in Sports Friends. That's what we wanted them to do. We did a lot of teaching on that. Did they know the scriptures, and could they live them out? We did that within the context, but didn't go further because we left the church to do that. Do they participate in community? Yes. That's what the team created, was community. Plus they were connected to a local church or church planner. Did they focus on the lost? Yes. Spiritual generations, were they being multiplied? I think they have been to a certain extent, but I think we could have been far more intentional and strategic with training them how to disciple. There are too many resources today that we could have helped them feel comfortable with, and to live that out, and to create a passion around that as their success criteria, so to speak. Because I never think you should look at numbers of how many you've trained or how many you have in there. None of that matters. It really matters that, you know, the Great Commission. Do they love God? You know, the 2 greatest commandments. Do they love God with all their heart, soul, strength? Do they love their neighbors as themselves? Do they go and make disciples, teaching them to obey everything that He's commanded? That really, that's kind of the focus of getting to that place, and then having them do the others. And so, yeah, that's a bit of that. Is that
Ben and I've been, or Ben's been really spearheading the whole revision of our training, so he's taking notes.
I'm going to say this is fascinating, and hearing that is gold. You know, for to hear that is really good. I mean, you've mentioned on this, you know, around your light bulb moment. You've talked about some of our training, which has come from, you know, you've mentioned the Kingdom scoreboard. We know it as, you know, trophies not lasting forever, going after things that are going to last forever. You've mentioned sports, and then ministry, shouting it really loud. And I'm interested, Brian, I interviewed 5 of our longest serving staff members about a year ago. And I asked them, what has been the most foundational piece of Sports Friends training? Do you want to have a guess at what they said? What do you reckon they said? What's been the most, you know, significant bit of training that they've had and stuck with them?
Oh, wow. Boy, the sports ministry piece, was that?
It was around that. It was the Kingdom perspective. So yeah. It was around the glasses. So yeah. I don't know if you could explain a little bit about that. Yeah, the glasses. So Kingdom perspective. So yeah, you've mentioned scoreboard. You've mentioned obviously sports ministry, which, you know, that is, you know, shouted in loads of different places. But explain the Kingdom perspective.
Yeah, well, I think it's similar. It's like you have to have a heart for those that are part of the teams, your initiative that you're working with within Sports Friends. So it's about their heart, because if not, because it's a transformative ministry. That's what you're looking for, not a transactional piece that is sporting. And oftentimes, if you just have the wide world of sports glasses on, those glasses are dark because it's transactional involvement with your participants. Whether it's subconscious or conscious, you're using them to win. And that's all really that you end up caring about is the winning piece of it, right? And so the kingdom piece is completely different. It's their hearts. And a key part, depending on where you're serving, like when we used, in Ethiopia, the girls, many of them, it was female genital mutilation was in the country. They need healing, right? They don't need screaming and yelling to go faster, to get here and score more, etc. If we're going to be in ministry, what's different from Kingdom Perspective is we care about the hurts, and that we can't heal them, but Jesus can, to give them hope and to give them freedom from there, and to know that this Jesus loves them. And so the Kingdom Perspective really focuses on the heart. I have hang on. I mean, it's really about this. I keep this on my desk all the time.
For our viewers, for our listeners, it's a heart. It's
a heart. And I could do a lot of teaching on this, but it can't be divided. It's got to be you got to be coaching the heart of the individual. That's Kingdom Perspective from a godly position. And if you're not careful, your motivations, your drive for self-worth and significance around the team will cause you to have transactional relationships rather than transformative. I believe it's both and. You don't have to sacrifice winning, and we don't have time for all of this. You can have a drive for intensity to win and still have a transformative approach to the participants. It's both and, not either or. But it's a special coach that can do this. He's got to be really good at teaching and coaching the sport, while at the same time knowing this is the priority that you want here. You want this to become a new creation. You want this to be born again, and then full of the Spirit and living and abiding in Him. So yeah, I don't know.
We need some of those. We need some of those, for our coaches, right? But yeah, we describe it as the clear glasses, right? You look through the clear glasses, not the shaded glasses, and you just explain that going after the heart. Yeah, look through the clear glasses.
Yeah, the clear glasses. When you put those on, it's from a godly perspective. It's from a biblical perspective. What the Lord teaches us to do there. It's that Jesus compassion around the tax collector, around the Samaritan at the well, it's all of that right there with that biblical truth coming forward. So, but you have to have that compassion, that empathy, that desire. Oh God, I can't change a life. I cannot do it, but you can use me to do it. Help me to know the hurts, the issues, and allow this person to be transparent with me, so that they can have the hope and healing of Christ, so they can be who they need to be. That's the most important thing. And that's the coaches. We need more coaches that focus, and discipling there. And part of the training, we would always tell the guys, if you can train 4 times a week, don't train 2 times a week or 3 times a week, and go visit them and have one-on-ones and be with them. Rather than spending 4 times, just be a better coach on the 2 times or 3 times and go visit them on the others. Have a strategic plan there.
Yeah. I wish we could, man, this could be a 2-parter. We can keep going, but I this is amazing. It's good to have the source. Maybe transitioning a little bit, maybe the similar lines, but as a parent, well, I mean, you've been a parent times 2, times 3, times, so now you have a son that's going on to play a high-level sport. What do you say to other parents, or how do you try to model that behavior to your son, as well as, I know this is a passion of yours, is speaking to other parents, not living through their kids vicariously, but how would you kind of talk to parents?
Yeah, you guys are asking huge questions. That's so big. And I'm sorry, I'm doing an abbreviated crash course on this a little bit, but I think, so this is literally our 41st year of parenting from within the home. So just out of 41 years, hopefully you got something right, but the interesting thing was, through sports, is that when we got the boys, again, if you just unpack my messiness a little bit, I at least thought, well, they're from Ghana, they can play soccer. And so, like, but I don't have the big picture that God has, and that's why we need the Spirit, right? Because when he mentioned American football, I'm like, that doesn't make no sense. But God was orchestrating something there, right? And so for me, when they brought American football on, what happened was it was very, very significant when it comes to sports parenting. I knew nothing about being able to coach or teach them American football. And that was perfect. That's exactly what God wanted. Because in America, when the kids start at age 5, by the age of 13, 72% of them drop out of youth sports. And the number one reason is it's no longer fun. And the number one reason it's no longer fun is because of dad's evaluations of their practices and games. Hey, son, you did good, but don't you remember this or that? It's particularly the car rides in America, right? And so I didn't know anything about American football. So what God said, you're going to disciple 3. So I'm going to focus on these boys using the context of the environment of competitive sports to disciple. And so really that's what it came down to, was like, hey, we're going to talk about some key things. So we came up with like some of the values and virtues that we wanted. So we have a big 5: humility, honor others, honesty, high energy or hard work. High energy is more like focus, concentration, intensity, and hard work. It includes all of them. So it's not just work hard, it's focus, concentration, and intensity to win. I want you to have those, and then have fun. And we looked at how those things play itself out. So for instance, American football, or in soccer, Ben, as you see, somebody scores a goal or whatever, and it's like, it's me, it's our team, all that kind of stuff. And I said, look at humility wise, boys, if you celebrate that way, I will come down to that field, take you off, and put your car and bring you home. Because that's not what it's going to be about. So I think I scared the bejeebas out of them early on with that. But they were also Ghanaian, so they were a little more laid back, truthfully, honestly, the personality. But we had to find the behaviors that support those virtues and values. That's what's key. A lot of teams, they hang values on their walls or whatever. But we had to create a culture of discipleship in the home anyway, because we're believers. You have to create that. And then we have to create the culture of discipleship as it extends to the environment of competitive sports. And it had to begin with me as well. And a lot of times dads are reliving their failed dreams or where they stopped through their kids. And that's sick and that's gross. It's their time to play and participate. But see, we're still, if you do studies, and again, I don't have the time to get into this, but dopamine releases and all that kind of stuff, they've done them on parents. And it's incredible how much, endorphins and all that stuff is released in just seeing their kids play and do something well. And it can become addictive. And it can become something where Christian parents, believe it or not, lose focus and they desire for them to get a college scholarship or go in the pros. Now, like, think of it. 97% don't get full rides in college scholarships. And 1% go to the pros in any sport. It's right close to 1% in every sport. But 100% of us as believers, Proverbs 22:6, train them up in the way to go. Deuteronomy 6:4-9. Impress upon them. And it starts out, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart. We got to press upon them these commands, and to live them out and to help them live them out within our home, because there's going to be failure. There's going to be falling short. How can they, pride, right? That brought down Satan, brought down Adam and Eve, that the environment of sport is a perfect greenhouse for growing pride. And here we are as parents putting them out there, and wondering why that they're not getting full of themselves. And that whole world says you have to perform well, and other people are telling you things about how you're performing. And so that leads to depression, discouragement. They get defeated. There's suicides, so many suicides with athletes, body image issues with girls that come about from it. And again, all the while, a lot of Christian parents, they're missing it. And if you ever, missionaries, pastors, elders, deacons are the worst parenting in the stands. They're losing their minds. Oftentimes, they can't do it behind the pulpit. We can talk about humility, get the scriptures, put it out there, and what James, 4:6, God opposes the proud, but exalts the humble. And then we get out there and we're going nuts. And you go, what just happened? And so we're not living that out. It's time for parents to embrace discipling their own children and using the incredible, don't leave it. It's an incredible environment for two things: training in godliness, but God just didn't want us to become monks, right? Or sisters. So training godliness, but don't play. I have to be really careful with this. I'm just going to say it.
Here we go. Close your ears, people.
It's time, in America, not necessarily where you're serving, okay? But in America, I believe it's time to close down the vast majority of church sports ministries and train the people in the church, right? Disciple them and their families, give them a why, make disciples, a compelling vision, maybe something like the glory and the possible, where God can work in and through you beyond anything you can dream or imagine, and he alone will get all the glory. And then give them some resources to train their kids in godliness, while the whole family being on mission in the community with unbelievers who are, we've got single people out there, we've got divorce situations, we got kids that are being abused, parents that were abused, all sorts of issues that are parents that are hurting and need Jesus. So if we were in England or in the United States, that's the mission field now. Man, we need you going there. And so when you go out there, don't just think of, if your son's Ben or Kai, you got two wonderful sons, Ben and Kai, don't just think about making them better players. Have a different set of glasses on, that you have a kingdom perspective and mission of how can we build a relationship with this family? God help. And why not, and going home, why don't we begin praying with our children for their teammates in those families? Then why don't we invite them for coffee over the house, to church, to a barbecue, to a game at a pub, to watch something with them? We might want to ginger, take them. And I know that's contradictory, I don't know. Some people might not believe that you should do that, but do what you need to do to build a friendship, to make a relationship, to be able to lead to a discipleship relationship. That gets exciting. Can you imagine if just parents in the UK and America started thinking that way with their kids into sports, rather than them one day playing for Newcastle, or probably the dream probably is a Newcastle.
Definitely not.
I don't know. No,
definitely not.
Rambling there, but that's kind of a little bit, because I just think the fields are ripe, the workers are few there, and so many families and people would come to know Christ. But we have to be transformed and have a different kingdom perspective when we go into the environment of youth sports. I think that's the next great mission field for sports ministry. If you think about it, nobody's touched that.
Yeah.
Wow. That is incredible and amazing revelation to think, and a challenge as well. But like you had the light bulb moment, I think maybe some people listening may have that light bulb moment now as well around that. I mean, Brian, I've got to go back and listen to this and take notes, because we should have put a disclaimer on, because there's been so much gold in here. And I'm so pleased I can go back and take notes, because I tell you, A lot of good stuff. But could you sum up? Obviously, we're called Already Won in less than a minute if we can. Howard, what does that mean to you? That phrase, already won. I'm putting you a challenge. 1 minute if you can. Already won.
Well, first of all, remember, I got the sports friend shirt. And Ben, I got a question for you before we do that. What was the original name of Sports Friends? It wasn't Sports Friends.
Football Friends.
Wow, Ben, you're amazing. This shirt. No, I'm not. I'm not going to send it to you. It's the only one of a kind. You are the real deal.
He won.
We need to frame this. I've already won. We need to frame this. This will be worth a lot in the future. I'm telling you.
Oh, Ben, yeah, you guys know better than I do. I haven't really thought about the Already Won. I think it's a great name. I can just tell you what it means for me. So I always think the opposite true. If I've already lost, that's pretty discouraging. That's unmotivating. That's like, why are we practicing? What are we doing here? Why are we playing? If we already know we're going to lose. Well, for me as a Christ follower, I already know I've won. And that is a changing perspective with how I play, because I no longer have to be a slave to my performance, having my significant performance, and to others. Christ has already won. I am a child of God. I am unconditionally loved. I can play with freedom and joy, because what a man meant for Jesus in losing by his death, he created victory for us by conquering the grave. So we have victory for all eternity for those who follow them. So we've already won. We will not be defined by the performance or what other people are saying. We've won. We're victorious already. And so let's imitate Christ as we play to win this match. I don't know. That's the best I can do for you.
Well, we appreciate your time. We're setting records here. We got probably the longest one. This is definitely, yeah. Love God. There it is. Love God.
Love God like sports.
So Brian, appreciate you. We just keep following you, and just thank you for all your inspiration. You and Trip with the sports friends, and just you with your family and what you're doing to disciple others. So we just appreciate you.
I want to come hang with you sometime. I want to come hang with you guys. Invite me somewhere.
I'll bring Brian up or Ben up to you or whatever. We'll figure it out. He's coming over in April, so
okay,
a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
all right, man.
We need to do part 2. We need to do part 2 MAI and navigators and a lot more stories. I think I want a part 2. So I know more people want a part 2.
Love you guys.
So Carl, wow, so much to dissect and just digest. I mean, wow. Teachable moments. I just love that. Transformative over transactional. You can do both, but I mean, so many words of wisdom. Yeah. Love God like sports. Anything from you?
Wow. I mean, I had 20 years of this. I mean, not the first 10 years with sports friends. It was great. Anytime Brian or Chip came over, it was always in-person learning, and you just sitting at their feet. And we've had so many of our staff from sports friends just kind of digest everything that they said and how they trained. It's been, you can see what's going on in their lives, definitely.
He's living it, he's breathing it, and he's sharing it. It's not from a manual or a book. He is living this so authentic. And our training, I can see how it's being so heavily influenced by Brian, the brain behind it. And that is, really, really encouraging. And it's challenged me a lot on this. So Wildman's Weekly Words, I mean, I think Brian said way more, but I would just say inspire before you expire. Brian, we didn't even touch on him, co-founded MAI and his work with Navigators Liberty University. The guy has inspired before he's expired. And I tell you what, work for a cause, not an applause. That guy has given his life to so many causes that continue to go on. So work for a cause, not an applause, and inspire before you expire, just like Brian the Brain did and is doing right now. So thank you, Brian. And so many words of wisdom today. I'm pleased I was sitting down, because I would have fallen off if I hadn't been sitting down. We do a whole season just with Brian. All with Brian.
All right. Tell your friends, tell your friends' friends, tell your parents' friends, and tell everyone.
We've already
Thanks again for joining us on Already Won, a Sports Friends podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe on your